Well, welcome to Rendering Insights. In this video, we're going to do a cartoon drawing of a Cadillac, 60s Cadillac. We're going to do the line work in Illustrator and then bring it into Photoshop and color this thing in gray tones. It'll be fun. If you enjoy this video or find it helpful, please like and subscribe below. All right, this is the drawing we're going to be doing. It's kind of fun. We're going to do this all in gray tones, background and everything. That'd be something different, so hope you enjoy it. All right, let's get going in Illustrator. Okay, here we are in Adobe Illustrator. The way we started this drawing, a little while back I had done this cartoon just freehand. I had sketched it out with a red pencil at first, just kind of drew out what I thought was kind of fun. And with markers and some other colored pencils, I went ahead and drew this little cartoon. And I thought, I like that. A little while later, I decided, let's do a digital version of that. So that's what we're doing today. So I scanned in this original sketch, brought it in Illustrator, and then I'm just going to using the pen tool, draw over all these perimeter lines to get our basic outline shapes done, and then later we'll bring that into Photoshop and color it. And we're not going to do all the color work. I decided, on this one, let's just do a black and white with gray tones cartoon. I just thought it'd be something different. It would look kind of fun. So that's what we're going to do. But before I started doing these outlines on here, when you draw on top of a drawing or photograph or whatever, it's kind of hard to see. So I like to do what I call a tissue layer. Actually, create a layer and with white paint, just do a panel, square panel on top of this, and then back off the opacity to about 40%, 42%, something like that. And it creates literally a layer that looks like tissue paper on top. This is what it looks like. Okay, that way when we draw our outline, we can see it a little bit easier. We can still see through to what we're trying to copy, but we can still see it. So these are the basic outlines of the car body that I created. Okay, see if we take away that tissue layer, see how much harder that is to see those lines. It's hard to tell what's new and what's old. So that tissue layer really helps us out a lot. This driver, I wanted to take him and trace him off pretty much exactly the way I had sketched him out. I like him with his pompadour and his knuckle dragger action here. So on a separate layer, went ahead and grabbed my pen tool again and just bent this around and created this line work for this driver. See him? I didn't change anything. Just created another layer for my guy there. Up on the front, on a separate layer, I created the front wheel. Just drew those in, and the front tire on another layer yet. Kind of a glutton for punishment doing all these layers on this line work. But you'll notice that once I get behind this fender well on the drawing, I don't care what's up there. I put these angular shapes just to drop it in. Because later when we're in Photoshop, this body panel will have gray tones on it, and we'll put this wheel layer and this tire layer behind it. And the only thing you're going to see is literally from that wheel well across the bottom up to the wheel well. That's it, nothing else. So that'll work good for us. All right. Okay, now we're back here. We're finishing our line work on the car itself. Let's see if we have everything here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that donor layer. Yeah, we don't need that anymore, and drop our tissue paper off. Well, we do need a shadow under the car, so I literally just got our brush tool with some black and brushed in a shadow on the car. This is what that looks like. Nothing fancy, and it's actually kind of bold, but when we have everything else shaded in, all the gray in the background, that's gonna just work just fine for us. Something else on the car, on this original sketch, I had some scallops on here, and I decided to trace off and put our tissue paper back those scallops exactly on another layer. That's what this looks like. See those? And they're going to be black on the car. Since this is a gray tone car, I decided to make those scallops black in Photoshop. The white works good on the green, but down the road you'll see why I did what I did. Okay, let me get rid of our donor and our tissue paper again. So now we have the scallops on the car. One thing I wanted to do was add an antenna on here. Old school antenna bent over with a foxtail on here like it was done back in the day. And that's what that looks like, just for fun. Remember, this is a cartoon, so we don't have to apologize for what we're doing. I'm not going to anyway. Okay, so there's our car. Pretty much all the detail on the car we're going to use. And next we're going to work on the background. I wanted to have this background look like this guy was cruising down an old desert highway and looking almost like the background would have come out of a old Roadrunner cartoon. So this is what I came up with. I looked online, looked at some desert horizons, saw some of these crazy shapes, looked like maybe they'd been in Utah somewhere with these mesas and these plateaus, and I thought this is fun. Just drew in some rocks and this crazy road, maybe kind of a dirt road, I don't know, and some clouds. So there's our background. So when we go into Photoshop, I'm actually going to do 2 layers of this background and color them separately, and I'll show you what that looks like. But on the car body, in these layers that I did, we're actually doing all the coloring on each of those layers in one pass. So I'll show you what that looks like once we're in Photoshop. Well, the only thing missing, I thought, you know, what does every desert scene need? A windmill. I know. What is a windmill doing in the desert? I don't know, but I liked it, so I decided to put that in there. I thought it was just kind of fun, created some interest. And what else? Oh yeah, we're in the desert. We need some cactus. So I drew in some cactus on another layer. See, I'm doing these in gray tones. So when we fill these with gray, they will all the line work will kind of disappear on some of it. Some of it will show, but a lot of it is going to disappear. And that's okay, because that will help make our subject, our car, pop forth here with this black outline. Remember, it's a cartoon. So I have this one cactus over here that disappears behind the car. It will in the drawing. So I don't care what the bottom of this cactus looks like. We just need to cap it off so when we do fill it, the color won't spill out and go into the background. So I just cap that off, and this other Saguaro over here. See that? There's actually another rock in here. It won't even show where I ended up putting this, but at the time I wasn't sure where I was going with it. So there's our cactus. The only thing missing is this area down here was kind of blank. I thought it looked kind of funny. So, you know, let's put a prairie dog in here. I know it's kind of weird, like what? I did some research, looked, and I thought this is what this little dude might look like. I put him on a little dirt hill, and he's kind of supervising, saying, hey, what are you doing in our neighborhood? So I thought, okay, there's our cartoon. The only thing left, I put a border around it, black border. So that's what that looks like. All right, there is all of our line work that we've done in Illustrator. Now we'll bring all this into Photoshop, and we're going to render this with gray tones. All right, let's go. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. We've brought in all this line work that we did in Illustrator, all those separate layers, remember the background, wheel and tire, the driver, and so forth. And we've stacked those in Photoshop, but we're just opening up one at a time to deal with, okay? So this is our opening layer, the body of the car. It's kind of works as a framework for everything else we're doing. So let's just take a look at that right now. But before we color that, let's go ahead and put in our driver. Remember this dude we made? We're going to go ahead and color him in one layer. And I'm going to show you what we did. So here's our driver. Brought in that outline. Very simple rendering here. We dropped in some gray on his arm and face, some darker charcoal for his hair, white on his t-shirt. Selected those areas and just did a little bit of shading just to give it some shape. Shadow under his sleeve and over his oversized arm, and a little bit of highlight up here. That was it. Pretty simple, but it's fun. It just kind of gives us a center focus area to work from here. And also just for fun, do you remember that little prairie dog guy that we made down here, let's bring him in. He also we did in one layer. Just put a single gray tone in here and just did a little bit of shading around this dirt hill. Just selected this area, shaded a little bit, and just selected a little bit around him. Not much at all. Remember, this is a cartoon, so it's not going to be real serious. Not going to be realistic at all. We do a lot more serious shading in some of our other videos, but this is pretty light and pretty loose. Okay, we have our supervisor here keeping an eye on everything we're doing. Now we'll work on this car body. Again, we're going to do all the color work on this car. The body work is all in gray tones. We're going to do it in one layer. This is what I ended up doing. Okay, just did this gray in here, made a white roof, and then just selected these areas and did a little bit of shading. See this line that runs all the way down? What's nice to do, see back in our line work, we have this solid line in here. So you can go in with your magic wand tool, select this panel through here, and back here, and with the black, just brush along that line and just get that shading up against that line as if that body line rolls under right here and creates a little bit of a shadow. And nothing shows up here, of course, because it's not contained in that panel that we selected. But it's cool. It does a lot for us. See this line up here? It looks like it disappears. There's lots of ways to do that, but I knew about the shade of gray that we were going to use on the car. So that line on our line work is what I used for this line in here. So when we select that panel, we can shade dark along there and let it run out up here. Then when we fill these panels with the gray, that line pretty much disappears. I mean, it's a little bit there, but your eye doesn't go to it. Same with down here along the door. See this crease that runs out on the door? We have that gray panel there. So when the color gets on the car, that line virtually disappears. Well, that's it. We also selected these areas again with the magic wand tool. These headlight rings, select one at a time. Brush in some horizon in here and a little bit down below for shadow and a little bit under that eyebrow. Select this one and treat it the same. Select this bumper and just play a little bit. Got in here kind of tight and just created a horizon line, some kind of mountains in the background. Remember, it's a cartoon. Do a little bit of reflection maybe on top and dropped in a hot spot on top of all of it. A little shadow, pretty simple, but it's kind of fun at a glance what that does. It gives the illusion of chrome without being too realistic because, again, it's a cartoon. Did the same in the back. Okay, the scallops that we had on this car, we drew those in a separate layer in Illustrator and brought them in. Remember on that original sketch, those scallops were white on that green body, but on this one, we're just going to make them black. So here's our scallops. They already had a black outline. I just filled them with black. Done. Super simple, but it creates a little bit of that custom look on this car. Okay, when you look at our wheels and tires, remember we brought those layers in and put them underneath the body layer so those weird shapes we had on the outside won't show. So here's our front wheel. Put a light gray in that and then selected each one of these rings and just rendered it like we did this other chrome. So after we put light gray in all these sections, all these rings on this wheel, selected this hubcap, brushed in some black in here and created this big fat horizon line, did some shading here, and then select this area, again with the magic wand, shaded a little bit of shadow under that center cap, and just put black in here because we're going to have a lot of shadow underneath this wheel well. Same with this other panel. All right, in this outer ring of this wheel, to me it's a color panel, you know, maybe it's red or green or I don't know what, but we just made that pretty dark. And then dropped in some white hot spots in here. A little bit of reflection just to give it fun. Usually these reflections are pretty much in line, but in this case I wanted it to show over here, so we just kind of dropped those in. On another layer we brought in our tire. There's our front tire. Again, dropped white in for the white wall and this dark, dark, dark charcoal in here. And then selected those areas and just shaded in some black. Just brush that in, give it some shadow so it looks like it's tucked in this wheel well. All right. Now our antenna. Remember that antenna we had in here that was waving back with that foxtail on there? We did that in one layer also. So this was white, like the tip, gray here, same as the car, and just went in here and brushed in a little bit of shadow on the foxtail, just to give it some dimension and some idea of motion, but that's it. There's no other streak marks or anything else in the car. That's enough to give it the illusion of motion. We need to put that shadow in here. Remember, we created just a long fuzzy line in Illustrator. We brought that in. Let's drop that in. We're not going to change it or do anything to it. We're just leaving it right like that, and that layer is underneath the body layer, the body color layer. Okay, now let's play with our background. Remember that line work we did on that background and made it look a little bit like, oh boy, old desert highway, crazy looking thing? Well, here we go. Here's the first layer that we colored in that background. We came in here and basically dropped white in the clouds, gray color on some of these mesas and some of these shapes. And they literally look like they could have been from a travel log in Utah or something. But it's just fun doing this. Put a little color in these rocks and this crazy road here. Whether this is a dirt road or not, I have no idea, but there it is. And here's the second layer we've done on that background. Just brought a third tone of gray in here, give us a little bit of dimension. And on these rocks, we didn't have to do any shading on them at all because the way we drew those, they already had these separate panels. So we're just dropping in a different color in those areas. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and put a border on this thing. Put a black border that we brought in from Illustrator. Okay, that just cleans everything up, tightens everything up just a little bit. Now, like every desert scene, needs that windmill, right? Well, let's bring it in anyway. Just dropped it in here and made it look like it's behind this rock. Again, just to create some interest. Give this guy something to look at when he's driving through the desert so he doesn't fall asleep. And I think the only thing missing is our cactus. So let's bring that cactus layer in here. Okay. I knew it was in here somewhere. All right. Again, this is behind the car, so it doesn't matter how we finish those details. They're back there. And on this color layer on the body, see, I just put a little bit of highlight on the windshield and that rear glass. Just a little bit to give it an idea of a little bit of shape in there. All right. Well, there is our Cadillac cartoon. I hope you enjoyed that. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way, please check out our other videos available on Rendering Insights.